God, be merciful unto us and bless us. Cause your face to shine upon us, that your way may be made known upon the earth, your saving health to all generations. Let the people praise thee, O God. Let all the people praise thee. Thou shalt judge the people righteously and govern the nations of the earth. Let the people praise thee, O God. Let the people praise thee, O God. Let the people praise thee, O God. Let all the people praise thee. Then shall the earth yield her increase. God, even our God, shall bless us. God shall bless us, and the ends of the earth shall fear him. Now let the people praise thee, O God. Let the people praise thee, O God. Let the people praise thee, O God. Let all the people praise thee. Send the power. Send the power. Pour out your spirit upon your servant and your people. Let your word be declared and heard truly for Christ's sake. Amen. 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 I first want to honor God for being here tonight. I want to honor God for being anywhere. Amen. On the green side of the grass, upright in two ways. It's good to be here tonight, and it's good to be in this company. It is delightful to meet the people that I am meeting on this occasion and to renew friendships, acquaintanceships, and relationships with those whom I have known for many, many years. The years are adding up now. They're adding up now. And sometimes I'll be almost daunted when I count and see what they add up to. It's amazing in the extreme. Grateful to God for the president of this academy. Amen. Could we give him a salute for his vision and his leadership, and for the president who now assumes the reins. Amen. Give him a salute as well. The Reverend Ernest Brooks. I met him, I don't know, a few years ago, when he came as a student to Duke, Divinity School. And it was a delight to have a student with energy and drive and who wanted to study and blaze new trails. It was very delightful indeed to meet him. I'm not exactly sure what year it was that he graduated from Morehouse. What year was that? 2005, yeah. He came as a student from Morehouse. At about the same time, I had a son who was studying at Morehouse. And it was delightful for me to engage inquisitive minds, sharp minds. Yes, it was wonderful indeed to see Morehouse students come to Duke Divinity School because that was a somewhat recent pattern from days gone by. That had not been the case. I don't know, maybe the word got out in earlier years that preaching wasn't required at Duke. No, it wasn't required when I was a student. But I latched myself onto some fine preachers and learned on my own. Yes, I did. But it's delightful in the extreme. Yeah, I was having a conversation with Ernest. He mentioned being at a church and met the man who taught me my only course in preaching. Bishop Philip Cousin of the AME Church. He's retired. He's a retired bishop now, but we met, and that's a long story. I can't go into it tonight how we met, but it was a wonderful, wonderful venture. And I said, I think I'll just try to make it on these preachers that I've been around. I grew up in the city of Richmond, Virginia, and in the neighborhood where I lived, there was a mighty fine preacher and teacher preaching by the name of Miles Jones. And so I listened to him aplenty. And at the same time, my pastor was James Forbes Jr., and so I figured that between the three of them, I'd do all right. I do all right. It's good to be here tonight and to celebrate the Academy of Preachers, to put the emphasis on preaching, on raising up a generation of preacher prophets, theologians, to lead the Church of God and to lead their generation. I'm so delighted to have my sister here. She is here in the city. She's an associated friendship and a hospice chaplain here in the city of Atlanta. She studied at Virginia Union. Yeah. Somebody say yeah. Yeah, that's the family school. I could go into another discussion about the path that sent me in a different direction. But to God be the glory for it all. I salute all of you tonight. I'm grateful in the extreme for being here in this place. And what shall I say about Dr. Shelley? Can you give thanks? Can you give thanks for him and for his contribution here tonight? There was a time when I thought, I was convinced that I was Samuel and the old preachers were Eli. But the years have passed by now, and now I'm proud to be Eli. And some of you are going to live long enough to be proud to be Eli too, because you will realize that Samuel needed Eli just as much as Eli needed Samuel. And in the long sweep of things, there wasn't an ounce worth of difference between the two of them when you see what the rap was on Eli. Yeah, but we need each other. And I'm glad to be here, to be invigorated by the youthfulness, the energy, and the vitality of this generation of preachers. There's much more that I could say, but lest I keep you too long, let me hasten to do what I have come to do. I invite your attention to the 40th chapter of Isaiah. And I want to take a look into verses 9 through 11. And from those verses, take a thought. Take a thought. Verse 9, get you up to a high mountain, O Zion, herald of good tidings. Lift up your voice with strength, O Jerusalem, herald of good tidings. Lift it up. Do not fear. Say to the cities of Judah, here is your God. See, the Lord comes with might, and his arm rules for him. His reward is with him, and his recompense before him. He will feed his flock like a shepherd. He will gather the lambs in his arms and carry them in his bosom and gently lead the mother sheep. Think with me for a time on this thought: a prophet and a shepherd. What is it? What is it that this ancient prophet poet is doing right about here? Are the metaphors being mixed by this poet prophet at random? Or are we being told something important about the prophet, about the preacher, the pulpit theologian, if you will? What if we looked at the heart of our calling as those who have been given a dual dispensation of the gospel? What if we looked at our calling in this way? Consider through this prism how the vocation is taken up in the scriptures to give insight into the peculiar character of the mission to serve God and to serve God's people. The calling is high for those who would feed and care for the flock. Yes, insight is granted into the nature of our Christ, the shepherd king, the prophet, who orders us to perform proclamation saturated with poemics, to operate with might that blends power with comforting strength and tenderness. We find in this passage the combination between the prophet, who gives utterance to the very heartbeat of God, and the dirty work of the shepherd, who must be willing to carry nasty sheep in his bosom. Her vocation is not really all that glamorous. It's certainly not like that of the court prophet who worked for hire, perhaps performing a few magic tricks for the king, blessing his deeds no matter how sordid, chasing away the true prophets who would dare to darken the door of the palace. Scarcely is there a better time than the moment we inhabit to ponder what we shall cry, what truth to tell, what alarms to sound, what bugles to blow. Sometimes the choice is, how much truth do I tell today? Yeah, how much will this moment bear? How much shall I save for another time? Or will I get another chance to say it? That's the burden upon the prophet. Or shall it be the uncertain trumpet that is of no help to the sheep, when all that supposedly is being done in their favor is patently false and does not resonate with the danger of the day? Let me use my turpentine imagination. Yeah, my sanctified imagination. Let me use that imagination for a moment. I'm sure this will be my first and only time worrying you. So bear with me for a little while and permit me to tell a little truth. You see, I'm a little old now to dabble in anything else but the truth. I traumatized some youngsters the other day when I was talking about this being my last year, and they were trying to decide, so where you going? What you gonna do? Are you gonna move? I told them, I said, no, the next move I make is gonna be up. And they said, no, don't talk like that. I said, no, the closer you get, the easier it is to talk about it. The next move that I make is going to be up. I'm exposing my hand tonight. I'm exposing my hand. I've lived a little too long to be but so polite. I've seen a thing or two in my time. I'm coming to the end of my teaching tenure that has spanned more than 3.5 decades. And you heard from the introduction that I spent some time in undergraduate administration. But it's close to 40 years now, counting all those administrative duties. I reached a university where I have served as a dirty little shepherd. I've had to put some lambs in my bosom and take on their dirt. I was educated in a school system that said, before we integrate, we would rather shut down public schools. One of the counties in the state where I was raised. And so when they shut the school system down in that county, a math teacher migrated to my county. And what he did was he developed his math team, and he coached us to go around the state beating up on turkeys. And my senior year in high school, he put a piece of paper in my hand, and I landed in Durham, North Carolina, in the School of Engineering in 1966, and I've been there for a long time. But in retrospect, I can see a guiding hand and an anointing from the Good Shepherd. But more than that, the same Spirit has cut a path for my feet. Many a day, my head has been anointed with oil, and my cup has run over in the presence of enemies. I remember it was 1969. We were a bit restive, and we took over the administration building. Yes, we did. But 5 years later, I was sitting in that same building doing the dirty work of a shepherd, anointing heads, pulling out burrs and the stubble that would get into the little lambs when they come in crying. I had a time, and I learned a lot during those days. And I could tell you a thing or two about the dirty work of a shepherd who is dressed in prophet's garb, or a prophet dressed in shepherd's garb, the mixing and blending of the metaphors. Over the years, I've learned what it means to preach in the mode that the deacon described in God's trombones, with an ear pinned to the wisdom post, the eye set to the telescope of eternity, and with the imagination turpentine. I call that my sanctified imagination, and I want to try it on you. I want to try it on you tonight. And so if you're grading me, you set a curve and let it be from C down. Because I'm going to do what I would never teach a student to do. You see, I could not find what I see in anybody's commentary, but I'm going to tell you anyhow. Couldn't find it in nobody's commentary, but I see it. I see it right here in this text. And you see, that's something you can't teach. You can't really teach how to see into the text. But your preaching is limited until you learn how to do it. You got to see. You got to see something in the text. What I see is a team of shepherds with at least one possessing the prophet's bugle. One gets up to the high mountain while the rest of the prophets stay in the valley. And from the high mountain, the one who has this bugle can spot danger. He can see where it's lurking. He can see where it's stealing with that stealthy move down in the valley. This is where God watches, where you can put some things into a grander perspective, where you can see what God might have you do in the dangers of the day, the dangers that look so much like dangers that should have gone, that should have passed, that belong to another era, but they keep coming back. Dangers that everybody can see. But from the high mountain, the prophet must see those dangers and blow the bugle. Sometimes the mountain has to be somewhat high in order to see the predators and to know where they hide. Are the metaphors being mixed here? The poet prophet? Or are we being told something crucially important about the prophet, about the preacher, the public theologian, the pulpit theologian? What if we looked at our calling as those who have been given the bugle of the prophet and the heart of a shepherd? In interesting ways, this is the vocation depicted in the scriptures, to give insight into the very character of those whom God summons to do this good work. This is a high calling. It's a calling of those whose work is to feed and tend the flock of God. Here we have a window into the very nature of our Christ, the shepherd king, who gives us our orders. The dispensation is proclamation saturated with poemics that blends power, comfort, and tenderness. The voice of the prophet. Miles Jones reminds us that there is no name given here in Isaiah 40. No name. It only says a voice, crying. And there are two ways to talk about that crying voice. A voice crying in the wilderness, or a voice crying in the wilderness, prepare a way for our God. But what is so crucial here, and what I want to lift up, is the voice asks the question, what shall I cry? And I want to say to you tonight that you never remove yourself from under that question mark. It's always a question, what shall I cry? Never an assumption that I know what to cry, but a question, what shall I cry? Take time, be patient, and wait to know what to cry. I can imagine shepherds working as a team, some mingling among the flock, some on the high mountain with an ancient, more primitive version of an iPhone, a bugle, to warn about what is seen, with an agreed upon number of toots, if you will, telling what's lurking in the valley. I'm talking about holy tweets. One toot for a wolf, 2 toots for a lion, 3 toots for a bear, but they've got this thing coordinated now. One is high in the mountain and the others are down in the valley, and they can signal and tell what's going on that is of danger to the flock. All are shepherds now, but some get higher in the mountain. I can see at least one with this vision, with this mission of looking out for the predators, while others have the more immediate assignment of tending to the flock. Now, both need full and complete knowledge of the sheep, but someone needs to be in the high mountain. I'm talking about homiletical theologians who teach preaching, who do the work of scholarship. I'm talking about pulpit theologians who set the palette for a generation. I'm talking about public theologians. I'm talking about those who feed the flock of God on a regular basis. We know the patterns of predation and protection, so we are not fooled. We give warning of what is lurking. It's not just about writing books that will earn tenure in the academy. It's not only about notoriety in learned societies. It's not only about titles. It's not being called doctor, bishop, apostle, governor. No. It's about giving a warning. And ever so often doing dirty work. The dirty work of a shepherd in the pulpit. Did you notice sometimes you got to do some dirty work in the pulpit? Oh, yes, you do. You got to clean up some mess in the pulpit. Dirty work in the hospital room. Dirty work in an ICU unit. Dirty work in a jail cell, at a food pantry, on the block, in the hood. Get some dirt and blood on your hands sometime, and your work will be more relevant. I heard it from Samuel DeWitt Proctor. He was musing about colleagues of his, contemporaries, who said, I don't visit my members. And Proctor said, if you don't visit your members in the hospital, how do you know what to preach? If you don't hear a mother cry, if you don't see children on their way to destruction, if you are not dealing with the dirt, the nasty work, how do you know what to preach? And yet, there is a moment for getting to that high mountain, yea, to the circle of the earth, where the mountain meets the sky, where the horizon merges with the heavens, where you can see danger from many different directions, where you can put things in perspective, where dangers of this day look oh so much like dangers of a day that is past and gone, dangers that should be gone with the day. Look through the words of this poet prophet for insight into the vocation of the shepherd prophet, who's a type of the one who came to fulfill the mission of God. He is to be contrasted with the shepherd who does not feed the sheep, the hireling who flees when he sees the wolf coming, the thief who comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy. He's contrasted with the prophet who prefers his own prosperity to the welfare of the sheep, or to the drunkard who babbles only what the corrupt king tells him to do, and fills his mug with wine so that he is intoxicated when time comes to speak. Rather, she will identify the scroll the priest should be reading, even when that scroll is covered with dust due to the corruption of those who have held the office. He will stand alone against the multitude of prophets, even when he has been tagged a troublemaker, or when the host outnumbers him by far, the host that has been visited by a lying spirit. She is particularly keen to predation, no matter what form it takes. The wolf in whatever the garb, the bear, no matter what the charm, the leopard, no matter how beautiful the coat. The shepherd is poised to give comfort, the comfort that makes one strong, that makes one bold, that leads the flock to streams of living water, that steers them clear of the poison in the pretty weed, that brings on painful death. She guides away from the putrid stream that fouls the stomach. I tell you, predation comes in many forms. We are aware as never before of how powerful men in high places and who have our great esteem cloak predation in the garb that they don. Predators clothed in judicial robes sitting in the seats of senators or ranking representatives. It's out in the open. It's out in the open. Who knows who will be next? Who knows who will be next? I thank God for sanctifying me, for cleansing the thoughts of my heart, for keeping me back from presumptuous sins. In the day when the rule for the rooster was that boys will be boys. Somebody knows what I'm talking about. By some, it was said that the people will overlook most anything if your hum is sweet enough. Lord have mercy. It was well known that many a pastor had an assistant pastor and a harem. Is you hearing me? I'm talking about predation. God help us, God help us, when preachers give a pass for the sake of preserving tribal political loyalty and re-lecture the incarnation to say that Joseph was a pedophile. Yeah. But there is another kind of predation that is perhaps more deadly, that can enter our domains and with which we must be concerned as shepherd prophets. And every one of us is subject to this if we do not get high enough in the mountain, if we do not ascend to the circle of heaven where the beasts can be spotted, even if they look like grasshoppers. There are predators who come in the cloak of ravenous ideas. They're generated as unvetted pop theology, tainted politics, squalid social and economic policy. Nietzsche is the same, no matter how neat his suit is and how much he smiles. Even if his speech is smooth as butter. Some know how to say God in a way that mesmerizes and draws people in. God. Lord have mercy. For the purposes of blessing a nation state as the march of God, no matter how many bodies get trampled in the process. Blood and soil, might makes right. The mother of all bums, historical ascendancy as proof of divine approbation. Losers are only collateral damage to be sacrificed on the altars of the gods of guns and victory. Triumph by military might trumps God's subversive choice of the weak, the suffering, the lowly. Noble, privileged human flesh dares to glory in God's presence. Healing the barren womb or the blinded eye no longer demonstrates God's glory. Sadducees get preferred to shepherds. High priests are preferred over lost sheep. Get to the high mountain. Somebody's got to go there. Somebody's got to go there and blow the bugle. A former colleague warned against what he called vaunting ourselves as defenders of God and not pondering the question of what to cry. I'm so glad to hear somebody celebrate theological training, because that's in part what theological training does. It forces the question, what shall I cry? It reminds us of what has been cried before and what the consequences are for what you cry. There is a question to be raised, a question that we never get away from. What shall I cry? This colleague added that there's a line running between Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Whenever God is viewed in the image of the Pharaoh, whenever God is recast in the image of the Tsar, the Caesar, the king, whenever God becomes the creature and the creature is no longer under the auspices or the judgment of God. When the creatures made in the image of God are of little or no consequence anymore. If you get a right notion in your head about who is to be privileged and what the good life is supposed to be, when you preserve your way of life at all costs and sanction it in the name of God, when human bodies and their health and their well-being are little more than refuse that gets into the way and that stands in your way of some figment, some projection of a normative person, that's a danger. And when we become the defenders of God, who is the defender of our idea or our ideal, we run the risk of standing in this spot. Get to the high mountain where you can see the wolf, where you can see the lion, the bear, the serpent, the dragon, the imposter that keeps coming back again and again in different garb for the purposes of predation. It takes a shepherd prophet willing to get high in the mountain. Go there, go there. You've seen Baal before. You've seen Belshazzar before. You recognize Nebuchadnezzar, Nero, and Napoleon, no matter what name they use for themselves. You know what you are looking at when you get high enough into the mountain. You've seen Pharaoh. You've seen Pilate. You've seen Paul Pot. You know a Herod look-alike when you see one. Herod's got a butcher complex. So did Idi Amin and Charles Taylor. So do Boko Haram and ISIS. We know Annas and Caiaphas when we see them. We know that the Third Reich did not die with Hitler. We know that some issues require a confessing church. We know the difference between Marxist critique and Marxist social prophecy. Just because the social prophecy went awry and yielded another czar and new oligarchs in Russia and the United States. Hello. He was not wrong when he pinpointed the horrors that result from the commodification of human bodies. Anytime you turn human bodies into a commodity, it's only a matter of time before you have trouble that you cannot squelch when you get ready. Get high, get high, get high enough in the mountain. We owe it to shepherds tending the flock. We owe it to them to be able to identify fake nectars, soda pop theology, feel-good preaching. God didn't call you just to improve your tune, just to get your hum right. God did not call you just to get the alliteration and the beautiful sound in your words. Ain't nothing wrong with that now. No. There's nothing wrong with that after you say something. But God did not call us to be what old Barry Hendricks called holy dope dealers. Somebody got to get high in the mountain and blow the bugle, because there's some shepherds down in the valley who need the help. God called us. God called us so that we can look at the assortment of liturgical productions that can populate cyber consciousness, the theopolitics that look just like poison weed and cause inner convulsions. They can fill the belly with bitterness and gall. Maybe you do not have the silver tongue of a Gilbert Patterson. Anybody in here love to hear some? Maybe you do not have the thousands of a Joel Osteen. Sometimes I wonder how many thousands can you pastor anyway? But there is a sincere preacher somewhere. There is a fledgling preacher somewhere who would appreciate it if somebody would get high enough in the mountain with the reminder, say for this day, that valleys can be exalted. Hills can be brought low. Crooked places can be made straight, and rough places can be made plain. Won't he do it? God is able. God is able. But somebody's got to get high enough in the mountain. The glory of the Lord can be revealed, and all flesh can see it together. For the mouth of the Lord has spoken it. Cry with the disposition of the prophet shepherd, who must be willing at any moment to protect the sheep, to defend them, to put up a gigantic fight. Not the hireling who fears the predator or who does not sound the alarm to announce the danger. Be sure to make it known that the Lord our God is the maker, the creator of the ends of the earth, and does not grow weary. There is no searching of God's judgment. Our God gives power to the faint. And to those that have no might, our God increases strength. Even the youth may grow weary and faint. Young men, young women can utterly fall. Oh, I wondered about that. I wondered about that when I saw young men falling from heart attacks. I heard an old woman preach. Some of you know the name, Ella Mitchell. She said that when old men have heart attacks, they recover. They said, but young men, the heart is so strong, it beats so strong that when they have a heart attack, it kills them dead. And I've seen it over and over again. I'm talking about learning how to wait on the Lord to renew your strength. Is it all right if I testify just a little bit? It's coming close to 3 years ago now. When I had an episode that put me down on my back. And I had to have a little talk with the Lord. I said, now, Lord, if you want me, come get me, take me. But if you're going to leave me here, don't leave me like this. Let me get up one more time. And let me stand again. I might not be able to do it with the vigor and vitality that I used to do 40 years ago. But give me another chance to get up and tell the truth. I've been high enough in the mountain to see some things. And you've given me a bugle and I can blow it. If you let me get up again, I'm going to tell what I see lurking down in the valley. What I see lurking down in the valley is predation and trouble and pestilence that is waiting to pounce upon a generation that has not seen, that does not know, that cannot remember because their memory is not long enough. I told you that I'm like Eli now. Eli had to tell that young man, he said, I know the voice you heard. You don't know what that voice is, but I know what it is. And if that voice comes to you again, go back and say, speak, Lord, for your servant hears. We need somebody in the mountain to give the sign. We need somebody in the valley to tend to the sheep. We need somebody who's not afraid to get nasty and afraid to get dirty, who can say, they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Oh, yes, they shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. The Lord is my shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want. Maketh me to lie down in green pastures. Leadeth me beside still waters. Leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. May I say it, may I say it. Yea, though I walk through the valley and the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely. Surely. Surely, surely, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. Amen. Amen.